and welcome to the latest episode of Campaign Middle East on the Record podcast, where we speak to top leaders in the region and across the globe on the key trends and challenges facing the brand and marketing industry. I'm Anup Uman, the editor of Campaign Middle East, and joining me today is Brent Koning, the Executive Vice President and Global Gaming Lead at dentsu. Brent, thanks for joining us on the show.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you here. How long have you been in Dubai now?
Been in Dubai just about 24 hours, so I'm still a little jet lagged, but came from London, so it's not too bad.
Oh, welcome to the show, nonetheless.
Yes.
Brent, over the past few years, we've seen gaming go from being a nice creative experiment, something that's flashy, something that's novel, to becoming a core part of the media mix for both brands that are looking into it, as well as the agencies supporting them. We've seen some big brands, and I'll call out a few. You've seen the likes of Amazon, Walmart, globally, Nissan, STC here in the region, as well as Pringles that have come into play. And obviously where the brands are at, some of the big six agencies have gone there as well, the likes of Dentsu Gaming. We've seen Havas Play, we've seen Omnicom's Level Up OSC, and we've seen Publicis Play as well entering it. For those still asking the question, right? Why according to you, is gaming going to dominate conversations in 2025?
Well, it's an excellent prop. I say often that even when it's not about gaming, it's still about gaming. You look at some of the top theatrical releases, Super Mario Brothers. You look at some of the best digital shows out there, The Last of Us. A lot of these IP are focused on video game IP. And so when you have Nintendo and that legacy kind of infiltrating some of the movies you'll see coming out this year, some of the television shows you'll see coming out this year, they break the boundary of just gaming. And so things like Arcane, some people don't even play the game, right? And on Netflix, it's one of the most popular animated series that's literally ever happened, right? Yeah. And so there's some crazy stats, like half the people haven't even played League of Legends or even more. And so for gaming, it's an extension of gaming, so publishers love it, right? Brands can now get involved because this extension has really kind of perforated into different areas of the business. So like for advertisers and brands, it's easier to do collaborations. It's easier for them to do these things because even when it's not about gaming, it still is about gaming, and it gives them an opportunity to go and activate in like a really kind of cool, neat way that connects with consumers.
Are you a gamer yourself?
Yeah, well, so it's interesting. I get asked this question all the time. My gaming path started like many others, which was really like parents not knowing what it was. My first console was a NES. Okay. And like I had a sister that was born. My parents like, I think we should get this gaming console. So my journey is largely charted through the console life cycle. And so it's funny, you can kind of age people as you start to like figure out where their journeys begin. Absolutely. But I've been playing video games, since I was 5 years old. Yeah. And so it's this like I am a native gamer. We talk about digital natives. There's actually gaming natives as well now. And so with technology just adapting so quick, it's cool. It's a really good part. It's actually another reason why it makes sense for consumer advertising, because you have people that have not known a world without gaming because technology and iPads and like all the different console platforms switch. So it's a cool space, and it's a great time.
I could talk to you about Call of Duty or Uncharted or Tekken or Mortal Kombat, all the way through to what you've said with your brother and the likes. But this podcast is not about that. So
is this a wrestling and sports video game podcast? Because if it is, I'm in.
Yeah. But getting back on track, so we clearly know that there is a massive gaming community out there. We know where the consumers are at. I mean, at times, I think we forget the fact that we're not just in the brand marketing space, but we're people ourselves. We're consumers ourselves. And, if we're self-aware, we know the kind of in-depth, loyal conversations that we have when we speak to specific games. So this might be a difficult question, but if I had to give you five, pick top five predictions that you have for gaming for 2025. And this is more or less, for those of you watching, this is more or less in line with the theme that Campaign Middle East has
Mm.
for 2025 Jan, which is predictions. We've asked about 16 client-side marketers and 16 agency-side leaders
Okay.
on their predictions on various themes.
Yeah.
So now that I have a gaming expert, so
Yeah.
to speak, what are your top 5?
So we released a list of top 5. I'm gonna edit some of those because things have even changed since the start of the year, and I'll kind of go in reverse order of what I think is gonna actually happen. I think that my kind of number 5 prediction would be that just entertainment and gaming completely just merge, and the lines are blurred already, but they continue to get blurred. Things like Arcane will win awards that they normally wouldn't awards. You'll see film adaptations of video game IP start to win awards. So it's no longer just like box office success. You're going to see the critical success. So I think globally and regionally, you're going to see things like the BAFTAs. You're going to see video game IP win awards across music, television, film, art, creative direction. You're going to see that to start to really make a mainstream impact. So that's a big one. I think the next like major prediction is there's been this in-game advertising, call it bump, that we haven't been able to really get over, and I think that starts to change largely because of this kind of blended lines between consumers and the output of that product. But you're going to see in-game advertising take a little bit of a different stance. It's going to become less friction. There'll be less friction because technology will help kind of lubricate that, and it will become a safer place to kind of play for brands. I also think you're going to start to see commerce play a completely different role, right? Commerce, I sound like a broken record. These lines continue to be blurred, right? Yeah. So culture being connected to commerce is now it's this kind of buzzy way of just describing you're reaching your customers where they're actually at. And so things like Roblox, right? You're able to go in Roblox and buy things. Like it's pretty wild, a wild experience. There's a great example. Walmart's one of the examples you mentioned earlier. PacSun is another example. So it's like if you go and you want to put shades on your character, you can buy those shades and they'll show up at your house, 4 days later.
It's so true because kids nowadays are asking parents for pocket money in Roblox currency rather than
totally.
So
totally. And I think it's actually it's interesting. It's funny you mentioned the term pocket money. The term pocket money is an old school way of talking about things. When you kind of fast forward to now, there's no pocket.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So when it's so easy, and I think that's kind of the story that it becomes really interesting. Like the retail media networks generally are trying to make it easier for consumers to go and get advertised to the way that they want to be advertised to, and that now includes where. It never used to be where. Right. It always was these passive counts of advertising stuff, but now we're in it. You're there and you're consumed, whether it's on console or PC or mobile. It's kind of there. The second major thing is a cultural phenomenon that takes place every few years, and that's Grand Theft Auto. You're going to see Barbie levels of takeover with Grand Theft Auto. It's one of the best video games of all time. It's super relevant in just culture, not even pop culture, but just the way that people actually kind of transact. It's a live service game. It's super, graphics. It's relevant, it's connected, it's social. It's literally anything you can think of to describe.
It's a world to live in. I mean,
totally.
GTA 6 is a world to live in.
Totally.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a big part of, culture today. And I think that's actually kind of my second and my first kind of prediction, which is GTA actually becomes the kind of next big player as a platform, which then becomes an excellent opportunity for marketers, right? You've got already Minecraft, Roblox, Fortnite. You add GTA to the mix as a platform for creators. And that economy, the creator economy and the equity that's built within community is just, it's excellent, and it's a right spot for brands to be in, and for our clients and the community's client or our competitors' clients. you need to be there. And so I think kind of going back to the original question of like, why now, why gaming, and why is 25 the place to be? You now have all these different avenues with platforms. You have IP that's like totally like integrated into society and community and culture, and like just plain and simple, it's really easy to be a fan of gaming as a consumer, as a brand, and as an agency, because the opportunity is almost limitless.
You mentioned award-winning work and brand experiences. I want to build a little bit on that. From a brand perspective, and so often we zoom out of culture, the kind of culture that we have at home. Go home, put on your PC, start gaming. Have a group of people on the same game. You have a different world and a different interaction with them. And then when you get to work, it's okay, let's talk creative, let's talk digital, let's talk media. It's a different world.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's important to kind of zoom out and just merge those two, right? So in terms of the work, in terms of what we do within the brand marketing industry, it's gone far beyond, like you said, merely attention grabbing exercises. It's gone beyond award-winning work, like we spoke about. It's become almost part of our everyday, right? If I were to ask you, what's the one or two or three pieces of work that really stand out from a brand perspective within the gaming sphere for you?
It's a good question. I think for just to pause for a moment, you have this really interesting thing happening right now, and I'll say in technology. That's not really fair, but technology, right? The inherent truths of culture are just evolved, right? As an example, like early days of Facebook, you're putting pictures on your wall and posting your test scores, and you're putting a shopping list. And what does that sound like? That sounds like a refrigerator, right? Like that. Facebook is an evolution of a refrigerator, right? You look at a photo album. We used to take pictures with our family, and we used to paste them in and put a little border on, like scrapbook it. That looks an awful lot like Instagram, right? And so these evolutions of like technology really allow for call it sentimental value to the consumer. And so I think when you look at the evolution of like all of those all of these latest technologies, like you throw AI and gaming and all the social media platforms, you throw all these things in together, it comes down to one thing, and that's friction. What is the least amount of friction to make you feel happy, to have nostalgia, to go and bring back these memories, not just for, Gen Z, Alpha, millennials, everyone. You throw everyone into this pool, right? What is the best work happening? It's the most frictionless work. And so when you look at things like Roblox and their ambitions, they're working with Shopify, right? The reason why they're working with Shopify is to make it a frictionless experience for you to go and just get the things that you love. So, and again, we've talked about it a couple times here already, but
it doesn't seem forced. It's seamless.
Exactly right.
It just feels like it's something you'd naturally do in that environment.
Exactly right. So I think we're not there yet. We haven't completely, in fact, we haven't even really started. But like connected commerce is one of those things. And I think when you look at, again, Walmart is a great example. Walmart is a huge mover, a huge retailer in the U.S. They have done the right things to kind of prove some of those things out, right? And I think that some of the best work is done on the things that they're testing. So some of that work is dentsu, some of that work is not dentsus. But you have the ability to go and buy something, and then it shows up at your house. It's very simple, but that is the most frictionless experience. And I think as you talk about how we get the goods that we desire, that is some of the best work. And so there's a bunch of different examples of how that kind of comes to life. But I think Walmart is actually the best, and you can kind of check it out. It's just really seamless, and it's nice.
It's true, because this reminds me of a conversation we had. So we were playing Call of Duty, and a group of us came, and one of our friends, and we were listening to each other while we're playing it. It's so often that the kind of conversations that you have are about life, although you're playing a game about death. And while we're busy killing each other on the game, one of our friends gets this text from his wife saying he forgot to buy the groceries.
Yeah.
And he was like, listen, how cool would it be if I didn't have to leave the game?
Yeah.
Within the game, I could just go to a grocery store while I'm restocking and just order a bunch of stuff and say, hey guys, just give me 2 minutes. I'm going to step out without leaving that console, order stuff, it's going to come home and then get back to playing.
But I think go one step further. This is all an evolution, right? One step further than that is you're ordering dinner and you haven't picked up the latest copy of Call of Duty, right? You can actually order it with Uber, right? So like FC, EA has done this with FC. Activision has done it with Call of Duty. You order your chicken pad thai, hold the spice, and then you get a side of, EA Sports FC. Like, it's crazy, and it's happening now. And again, empowering that retail experience through the retail media networks and those like intrinsic technologies. That is some of the best work. And again, this is big picture entertainment, big picture media, big picture gaming. It's not always just like, we want to get gamers, a soda. Like it's different. That's inherently different. That requires capital, infrastructure, investment in a strategy, and
it goes far beyond just pushing a product. It becomes part of life.
Exactly.
And that's what you're talking about, frictionless, a seamless experience. For brands who've not done it yet. Right? A lot of people are looking at it within the region, especially given how successful the Saudi Esports and Gaming World Cup was, and the Olympics for esports are planning to come to Saudi Arabia soon, and a lot of nations in the region are seriously considering investing in esports and gaming. A lot of brands until now have focused on sponsorship avenues, right? But going beyond it into this form of seamless, frictionless environment, the common entry point for most brands, and I mean people asking us this question as well, how do we get into this, would be about they start off with Roblox and Fortnite, right? And dentsu has been a founding agency with this Roblox partner program since 23. Since 23. So from your viewpoint, what advice would you give brands, and talk to them about how it's evolved since then? And from Dentsu Gaming's perspective, what's the focal point for 25?
It's an excellent question. It's the second most popular question that I get after are you a gamer? What should I play, and can you get me some V-Bucks? The reality is gaming sits in this very weird intersection within companies, right? So obviously we're here in MENA. This is regional HQ for many organizations. The global HQs or the clustered HQs have the same problems across the board. So this advice is applicable globally and regionally. When you look at budget, if I could draw a diagram, you have a circle of a media and marketing mix, and then you have an innovation budget. Gaming either sits in the innovation budget, or if you move that circle over a little bit, there's a little bit of a crossover, and it sits there. So right now, gaming sits in the very first thing a CEO will do is say, hey, we need to have a gaming strategy. And they say, great, let's add it to the top of the list of the tiny little circle. That's a problem. Like we need to take gaming and stick gaming into the actual marketing mix. When it's in the marketing and media mix, you can then go through and say, hey, we're not going to cut this, right? It's not an option, right? It's similar to how social media was 15 years ago. If you had a social media plan that was separate than a marketing plan 15 years ago, that was smart, right? Because it was like, ooh, we're going to de-risk this Facebook thing and this Twitter thing. It's de-risked. Now you'd be fired if you didn't have it integrated into your media and marketing mix. And so when you look at the big picture of gaming, it needs to make its way in to that media and marketing mix. And, we did a gaming report, and we can add a link to it or put it in the comment notes. In the gaming report, the biggest takeaway is that brand marketers and marketeers in executive positions, they need the permission to go and add gaming into it. And this is the simple line, this is the simple position that we've said, is you need to have an integrated gaming strategy. Your integrated gaming strategy can be, we're not going to have a gaming strategy, but you need to have one, and it needs to be within that mix. Also, it needs to have the right metrics. We talk about risk a lot in this industry, and people want to de-risk, and that typically means defund. The wrong KPIs are being used within organizations. Right now, we're using bottom of the funnel metrics, right? So bottom of the funnel metrics are things like real ROI, tangible ROI, conversions, CPMs, like all these different like data points. You can't do that for gaming. As we just discussed, gaming it's this higher level of integration. So we actually need to move the metrics to the top of the funnel around awareness, aided awareness, creator, attention economy, like the metrics that actually will help. They will trickle down into the funnel, and you can go have tangible results, like the Uber example with the game.
Consideration.
You'll be able to look at conversion, but if your metrics are only conversion, it will fail. And I can tell you right now, you shouldn't spend a penny on gaming, right? That's not practical, right? In essence, you need to move, the metrics need to make sense. It needs to sit on top of a strategy, and you need to have the right teams helping you advise on how to do it. This isn't a plug just for Dentsu. You mentioned a bunch of other agencies. I think what the beauty of Dentsu is that we're integrated into all of our brands, right? Most gaming agencies are just that. They're separate than the actual core to the business. And so as you're building that media and marketing like mix, our argument is that integrated strategy is the most important thing. And again, it can be nothing, but you need to have one, because then everyone's aligned. Your regions are aligned, your globe is aligned, your clusters are aligned, and you're in a position where you have you're in a position for success. And I think that's like a foundational difference in 2025, is that those things just need to change. And if they don't change, unfortunately, you're going to be missing out, because consumers have changed. They've already changed. Yeah. There's concerts in Fortnite. They're buying stuff on their platforms. They're going to movies. They're watching shows. They're buying. They're supporting creators and streamers. Everyone is moving on, and brands need to kind of continue to catch up. And the only way to get ahead is by having a really sound strategy.
It's interesting because we've been talking about a phygital journey a lot here as well, about how a large portion of the Middle East, whether it's Saudi Arabia or the UAE, Bahrain, Oman, has a very rich, young, tech-savvy population.
Yeah.
And they've already stated where they're at.
Yeah.
Right? So if this is not part of an integrated strategy within a brand's MMM, and if you don't have a clear vision and a clear strategy for why it's not or is funded, then you're going to either be a part of the ball game in a long time, so to speak, or not.
Yeah, I mean, there's, an interesting topic I had with actually a CMO of a top 100 company was digital natives. Actually, there's varying degrees of digital native as well. There's 5G digital native, like air quote 5G, because that ultimately the 5G native doesn't know a world of slow internet. Like, that's wild to think about, right? It's like
they don't remember the
No, they don't. Yeah, it's crazy. Like,
waiting 3 minutes just to connect to
yeah. But the talk about friction, right? And so I think in the world in which you're trying to go and build something that's like really, foundational and integrated and global and relevant and like culturally important, you need to be thinking about consumers in the right way. And so segmenting, like, the other, like, not prediction, but the other advice we give is, like, you need to have like your segmentation. You don't need to have a gaming segmentation. It just needs to be integrated into the segmentation, so you can actually go through and identify the right consumers. 5 years ago, the fastest growing 10 years ago, the fastest growing Facebook gaming community was 40 to 55-year-old women. Right? That is not going to show up in your segmentation, right? If you don't have really acute data with the right metrics, with the right strategy. And so I think that's like the kind of unfold of how it all kind of comes together. But that is critically important in this day and age, because there's such a different consumer out there.
There's so many layers of that onion to peel, but we'll do that in conversations to come. There's consumers and where they're at. There's the consumer expectation that's come up with technology. There's the convenience of consumer experience they're expecting, in places where they're already at, and how brands are catering to that. Before we conclude, Brent.
Yes.
Take a second. Any parting advice to brands and marketers that you would have for the region, for anyone watching, before we conclude?
Well, I'll address globally, and then I'll address regionally, and they're actually pretty similar. Integrated gaming strategy is like the most important thing you can possibly do, but alignment with global efforts and the global energy that's taking place in gaming with the gaming lens is critically important, right? The Esports World Cup is a great example of that, right? There's a huge epicenter of energy around esports, and it's all based in Riyadh. It will soon be based in Qiddiya, right? Like the things that are happening and taking place in Saudi Arabia are amazing, and so everyone needs to take note of that. It generally the global footprint of what that starts to look like will just continue to grow. So brands can activate no matter where they are. Regionally, this is one of the most tech savvy, young, vibrant, really communities anywhere in the world, and they love video games. And I think whether it's out of home or digital or streaming or the NBC, like whatever it is locally, you need to tap into it. And I think advertising to consumers where they want to be advertised to about the things that they love that's marketing, right? But doing it well, like that is actually having a really dedicated strategy that's really valuable. And whether it's dentsu or anyone, companies just that don't get on board will be left behind, and when they realize it, it's going to be too late. So that my advice is to have that strategy and really dial in what that means to their business.
Thank you, Brent. And isn't that the perfect way to wrap up this discussion on campaigns on the Record podcast? Stay tuned for more such conversations with experts in the industry. That's all for now, and until next time, goodbye.